So one of my brands recently did over $1 million in a single day. And what's interesting is that the result didn't come from like a new strategy, funnel, or a tactic. I've been in business for the last 18 years and I built over 25 of them. And most of the time what I was doing is obsessing around strategy like everyone else does. But here's what I realized, and the hard way, is that strategy is the least important part of the whole process. If strategy worked on its own, everyone would already be in shape, wealthy, and fulfilled. We already know what to kind of do. What actually creates these results is something that most people kind of ignore. It's your state, it's your story, it's your frequency, it's your beliefs. And when those aren't aligned, you hesitate, you negotiate, you self-sabotage, and you might have the perfect plan, but you end up actually executing on the wrong strategy. So in this video, I'm going to show you the breakthrough formula, SSF formula, so you can break through to that new level. And this is what it stands for, right? Strategy, stories, frequency. And I'm going to work backwards from the least important to the most important. Back to the strategy part. Especially with AI today, everyone has the answer at their fingertips. So what's your excuse now? If strategy was the thing that everyone needed, why are we living in a population where everyone is fat and overweight and low energy? Everyone knows exactly how to lose weight. Everyone knows the process that they have to, work out and eat less, or work out, eat healthier and work out more, whatever the formula might be. There's 1,000 different types of diets, and there's 1,000 different ways of actually getting to lose weight, So what is the problem then? And this is why I'm coming back to the point that you don't need to obsess around the strategy. The strategy is the least important part. Everyone knows the strategy, but people don't have the right stories or the right frequency in order to execute on that strategy. So if you're trying to go break through to the next level, forget about the strategy. Focus on the who, not the how. That's how you're going to break through to the next level. So then the next stage is stories. Why don't people actually execute on the strategies if we all have the answers at our fingertips? Well, it's based on the stories and the beliefs that we hold inside of ourselves. And everyone has a story. Let's go back to the weight loss example. So that person that's been trying to lose weight for 10 years, you ask them, why can't you lose weight? Oh, Matt, I've tried everything, I've tried every single diet out there, it doesn't work. Okay, what have you tried? Oh, I've tried this. Okay, how long did you try it for, Oh, I tried it a couple times, didn't work, and it's just, my genetics don't allow me to lose weight. I've just got I've got a eating disorder. I'm diabetic, or, they'll make up some excuse. And the point is that they have a story, an internal narrative around why they're overweight. And that is the fundamental problem first. No matter what strategy you give them, they're going to create a story and narrative as to why they shouldn't be overweight. And the next one is the frequency, right? And if your frequency isn't operating at a high frequency, and a frequency is another word for just state of awareness, right? Your mental state. And if you have, for example, low self-worth, okay, then obviously that's going to impact on the story that you have around yourself. And if that impacts on the story around you have of yourself, then it'll impact on the strategy you're trying to execute on. Same goes with business, personal development, whatever you're trying to achieve. And then back to, let's say, in terms of the stories that you might have around business, you potentially have a lot of limiting beliefs, and you probably have a lot of competing beliefs in your mind that's stopping you from breaking through. A lot of us, acquire these money blueprints from our parents and our environment in terms of what we can achieve and our thoughts and beliefs and stories around money, which then dictate around how we show up and the strategies that we actually execute on, strategies we even see that are actually visible into our mind. So ask yourself from this perspective, what money blueprints have I particularly maybe picked up from my parents? If your parents always say that money is scarce, then you're going to subconsciously have that story narrative that money is scarce. And if you have that narrative money is scarce, you're never going to find the right strategy to make heaps of money, because subconsciously you have that narrative that's directing you towards a specific strategy. And if you find the strategy that shows you how to make heaps of money, you won't even believe it, because subconsciously you think that money is scarce. And I had this inside of my mind for a while, not to the extent that money is scarce, but I always wanted to make $100 million. And I thought that I had to do that through multiple companies, until one of my friends built a $100 million company and I helped him do it. That unlocked a limiting belief that I had, that I could build it through one company, not 10 or 15. So we all have these limiting beliefs and stories inside of our mind that's stopping us from actually executing on the strategy. And now back to the frequency perspective, your state of awareness. So depending on your state of awareness and your frequency in which you operate will dictate the stories you create about yourself. If you operate from a high frequency, you have high conviction, high self-esteem, high self-worth. This is why you see all the narcissistic people do so well. Then of course the stories that's going to funnel down from that frequency is going to materialize the strategy a lot better. And this is why I tell everyone that business is 90% mindset, 10% skill set. It's about you acquiring the right stories and the right frequency in order to identify the right strategy and execute the right strategy. Because you can have the best strategy in the world, but if you operate at a low frequency, that strategy is going to turn into a low vibrational strategy. And if you have the wrong stories, then also the stories are going to make that strategy the worst strategy in the world. But with a high frequency, right? And if you have positive stories and beliefs that are in alignment with the desired reality you're trying to create, then you will find the strategy that matches up to that inevitably will make it seamless. And there's no point in you having the right strategy without the other two. So in terms of your state awareness, what are you thinking and feeling every single day? Are you thinking abundance? Are you thinking of, you have love for yourself? Do you get the promises you make to yourself that affects in terms of your frequency and your awareness? As a very simplistic example as well. People struggle with low self-love and confidence because they keep breaking the promise they make to themselves. And if you keep breaking the promises you make to yourselves and you can't control yourself, how can you control your reality? If you can't control your reality, what stories are that going to create about yourself? If you can't create those positive stories around yourself, how are you going to find the strategy that's going to match up to the stories, right? Because subconsciously, these are all things that are playing in the background. And reality is formed through 3 different planes: your physical, mental, and spiritual. And unless those 3 are aligned, then you will never be able to execute on the right strategy. And the most people that act on the physical plane, which is just the effect, right? Reality is just the effect. Then they try and change the effect with effect. They'll start working harder and harder and harder. They'll neglect the mental and spiritual. The people just act on the mental plane. They keep overthinking things over and over again, but not actually doing anything. Then you have the spiritual people. They just pray that, the life will play out without actually doing anything as well. And they're trying to spiritually bypass. This is why this formula I'm trying to teach you guys is so important, because it requires every single stage. When people overemphasize the strategy, they spend so much time and effort trying to execute on actually the strategy part, the mechanics, the how, where they neglect the who. And the who is ultimately going to dictate what type of strategy you'll be able to see, what type of strategy you'll be able to believe in, what type of strategy you'll be able to execute on. That's where it all starts. So remember, frequency first, always, because frequency outweighs effort. No point you trying super hard on a strategy that if your frequency isn't aligned and your beliefs aren't aligned, because inevitably you're going to keep self-sabotaging and you're not going to be able to be successful. So optimize your frequency first and your state of awareness. Number 2, identify the stories that you're telling yourselves, the limiting beliefs and the competing beliefs that you might have against what you're trying to achieve. For me, a competing belief as an example was that rich people were depressed. Ultra wealthy people were depressed. Anyone with $100 million would be depressed, because I met a billionaire one day in Mykonos, a night out, and he told me that he bought a yacht for $120 million, parked it in Monaco, looked to the right, saw a yacht worth $200 million bigger than his, became depressed, sold everything, started playing guitar on the beach, and was like a hippie. And subconsciously, I created a narrative, right, a story around that. And for a lot of time, I kept self-sabotaging to be ultra wealthy because of that narrative. So we have to identify what other competing beliefs do we have internally, potentially, that's self-sabotaging us, that's stopping us from achieving, materializing our desired reality and executing on that strategy. So, and then limiting beliefs. What limiting beliefs do you have? What you think you're capable and not capable of? Write them all down. Have a conversational chat about identifying these things. And then lastly, the strategy. Once you operate at that high frequency, once you operate with the right stories and beliefs inside of yourselves, the strategy will work itself out, I promise you. That is the easiest bit, especially today. We all know what to do. It's at our fingertips. AI is there. Consultants are there. People getting free content on YouTube. That is not the problem. Everyone knows how to lose weight. That is not the problem. The problem is up here, and the problem is in here. And that's where you have to identify for yourself. And then, I'm telling you now, my life completely changed when I understood this concept. 2024, I did the reverse gap year. I optimized my frequency and my beliefs. I re-engineered all that stuff. I did over $1 million in a single day then as well. Met my dream wife, started my personal brand, all because I stopped worrying about the tactics for once, the how, and I focused on the who. So that's my challenge to you. How can you focus on the who and not the how? What are you doing from a frequency aspect every single day? What are you doing from a belief aspect every single day instead of a strategy aspect? Follow this process and I guarantee you'll have a breakthrough before you know it.